No way.
It was terrible.
I know we were very good. Well done. Oh my God! That's fine.
Sorry.
Hang on.
All the way down. Sorry.
Yeah. Don't do anything that much. Yeah. Guys, so when you come out, what's going on? We need up. It's good. Sorry. Stay open when they come out. So they've got the things with it. Right? I'm just saying, yeah, because nobody else was doing it. But, yeah, do you want to? Right.
Just really quick.
Ladies, step forward a bit.
Yeah, let's wait. Let's keep it clear.
Let's do it again.
Nice reaction.
They're going
Belinda, we're going to give our answers to the players, so that's going to be us after they've got their thing.
Guys, can you come on? What's your camera going?
All the way up. Thank you. How are you feeling?
Absolutely jubilant. I know a lot of people didn't believe this, but we had absolutely no indication of what was going to happen today. So when we turned up in there, we were shaking. This has been a really, really long road. We first took the Scottish Government to court over the Gender Representation on Public Boards Act in 2020, and I have to pay a huge tribute to my co-directors, Marion here, but especially Trina, who's up in Edinburgh, because she was the one who insisted that this was our way to clarify the law, and she kept pushing us and we kept fighting. And who would have thought that, 7 years ago, Marion set up for Women Scotland with Trina and Magdalene, who we wish could have been here to see this today. She would have been so delighted. And we were in a really difficult place in Scotland then. We thought we were going to see rights for women rolled back, and today the judges have said what we always believed to be the case, that women are protected by their biological sex, that sex is real, and that women can now feel safe that services and spaces designated for women are for women, and we are enormously grateful to the Supreme Court for this ruling.
We'd also like to thank our legal team.
Yeah, of course.
Cindy Mills from Balfour and Manson, and our Casey, who's not with us today. But predominantly, we would actually like to thank the women across the whole of the UK and the wider world that has been with us from day one.
Yes.
Who believed in us, who contributed £5 per month, who bought our badges, who donated when they didn't have any money to donate. And times are actually tough at the moment, but they actually understood how important our case was and how the protections for women's rights, which we thought we had maybe protected years ago. It just shows you that we have to be ever vigilant on any policies or any legal things that come through to ensure there is no detriment to women's rights. So thank you all for attending here, and thank you all for the women and men that have supported us today.
Susan, can I ask you, what would you say to politicians now? Is there anything they need to do in response to this judgment? What are the implications for politics?
Well, in Scotland specifically, I think what our politicians need to get their heads around is this is the law, and they need to stop pushing faulty guidance into schools and hospitals. And there is going to be, I think there is going to be an ongoing fight, because we still have policies that now we know, we always knew that they were unlawful because they allowed self-ID, and we from our previous rulings we knew self-ID was not lawful. But now we have a really concrete basis on which to go forward, and so we are going to be working on making sure they get those policies out of these places, and hopefully they will start taking our advice a bit more.
What about Westminster?
Well, I suppose for Westminster, I think actually generally politicians there and in Scotland will be breathing a bit of the sigh of relief, because if we'd have lost, they would have had to sort this out, because as the judges said, that interpretation that the EHRC brought forward and the Scottish ministers would have made a mockery of the law. So they would have had a lot of work to do. I bet they're very glad we've saved them that.
Do you have a message for the community who so wished it went the other way today?
I think the thing is, we have always said that everybody is protected by the Equality Act, and everybody should be protected by the Equality Act. This is not about prejudice or bigotry, as some people would say. It's not about hatred for another community. It's just about saying that there are differences, and biology is one of those differences, and we just need protections based on that. And I think that, you know, we are more than happy for safe services and spaces to be provided for other groups of people depending on their needs, but we have to recognise that different people need different things. Here, 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 here.
Filming here, man. I'm moving around. Right, you don't seem calm at all, my friend.
Was that good enough? Okay.
Keep me aware of bags
Yeah, it's Kate Barker, and I'm the CEO LGB Alliance.
Lovely, I do remember that.
Okay to go?
Yeah.
Do you mind standing slightly closer?
Okay.
Cool. Thanks very much for speaking to me, Kate. Wonder if you could give me your initial reactions to the ruling this morning.
Oh, well, you can see I'm smiling. It's just fantastic. You know, this is a victory for biology, for common sense, for reality. It's definitely a victory for lesbians as well. And it was specifically mentioned in the case how lesbians have been disadvantaged by this idea that maybe a man could be a woman and could be a lesbian if he had a certificate. And the ruling just absolutely blew that out of the water. And that it was really fair, it was really clear, and it delivers huge benefits to women and to lesbians in particular. So we're all thrilled about it, really delighted.
I wonder if you could elaborate on those benefits that you just mentioned there, in terms of what benefits would it have in everyday life to people?
Sure. Well, say for example, if you were to have a lesbian dating app, a lesbian social group, a lesbian sports group, a lesbian camping group, at the moment, if a heterosexual man with a gender recognition certificate said, well, I identify as a woman and I'm a lesbian as well, he was able to insert himself into that and the women could not say no. If you look at dating apps now currently for lesbians, around 20% of the people on them are heterosexual men who say they're lesbians. Lesbians who object are kicked off the apps and they're allowed to remain. So what this tells us is there's a difference between a biological woman and a trans woman who may want to identify as female but they remain male, and it's that clear differentiation between sex. What does it mean in the Equality Act when it comes to applying it in a range of processes? So it really adds clarity, and I think it's good for all people actually. It's good for women, it's good for gay people, for lesbians, it's good for trans people as well, because it shows exactly where their rights stand, and it means if people do feel discriminated against, they've got recourse to go to the court. Clarity was what was needed. It's so muddy before, hence ending up here at the Supreme Court. So I'm really, really pleased with the clarity of the judgment, with the benefits for all gay people, not just for lesbians, but for lesbians in particular, and for women. 4Women Scotland did a fantastic job. We were delighted that we intervened. Really pleased that the judge mentioned our submission from LGB Alliance in particular. So it was, it's been a fantastic morning, really.
And obviously the ruling was with regards to the Scottish Government in particular. Do you think this could set a precedent going forward in terms of challenging other potential sort of definitions and rulings in the future?
I think it will negate the need for further challenges because it's so clear. Because clearly it's come to the Supreme Court, so it applies to the whole UK. I think it's going to cut out a lot of very expensive and time-consuming court cases in the future because it sets a clear precedent. It's going to be good for everybody, good for any minority group that may feel discriminated against. They know where they stand now, and clarity is much better for people. You know, the complications of law have all been sort of split aside here, and they've made a very, very clear judgment, which is pretty easy to understand. Although there are something like 30 odd pages of it to go through, and I've only just come out, so I might find something in there that we're not delighted about, but I don't think so at this point. It's very clear cut and very positive for minorities and for lesbians in particular.
Obviously, now that we have the ruling on this particular case, is there any sort of other things that your charity will be looking to push going forwards? Or?
We're very much focused on providing support services and tackling discrimination for gay people. So we're doing other campaigns around gay adoption, for example, gay pension rights. So this is only a part of our work. We're not a purely campaigning, we're not a legal organisation. But having this judgment makes all the rest of our work much easier because we're able to define what is a lesbian and what is a gay man. Because unless you have a clear definition of who is male and who is female, you can't talk about same-sex attraction because the waters are so muddy. So this will help us to get on with lots of our other work, which is more about the kind of support services that you'd often see from a charity that we're building on at the moment. Is that right?
That's great.
Amazing, thank you. Right, I got to dash off.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, mate.
Yes, of course.
dating apps, our bars, our cafes, our bookshops, our walking groups. They're infiltrated by heterosexual men who say that they're lesbians, and that affects our right to freedom of association. And the court has recognised that, as I say, it's an integral part of their judgment. So that's why LGBT Alliance, the Lesbian Project, and the Scottish Lesbians felt so strongly about this particular issue. But of course it's a much wider issue because it goes to the heart of women's rights. You cannot protect women's rights unless you know what a woman is. Now, a lot of people have said that this case is about rolling back trans rights. That is absolutely not the case, and the Supreme Court has made that very clear. People who identify as trans are fully protected against harassment and discrimination under the Equality Act. So are women and so are lesbians. And this case was about recognising that everyone has rights and that women's rights and lesbian rights matter as well as trans rights. The decision has made the law very clear, and you know now as a result of this case that self-ID is not the law of Scotland or England, and moreover a man cannot become a woman just by getting a certificate. Sex is not about certification, sex is about the biological sex of the organ. So now that the law has been clarified, all these institutions that are working on the basis of self-ID or accepting men with gender recognition certificates are actually breaking the law, and they will have to change their policies. And I'm calling on the Scottish Government and my former colleague John Smith and on the British Government, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, to make sure that public bodies and private bodies respect the decision of this case and adjust their policies so that sex means biological sex, and so that lesbian means a woman who is attracted to other women. Lesbians are not attracted to men, and we are not attracted to certificates. And our rights are recognised not just in the law of the United Kingdom, but also in international law. And this case has made that very clear, and I'm extremely grateful to the justices of the Supreme Court for their very cogent reasoning. This has been a mess for years, and now they have cleared up the mess, and it's time for government and the regulator, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, to make sure that public and private bodies across the United Kingdom respect the law and respect women's rights to single-sex spaces and respect lesbians' rights to lesbian spaces. you know.
Fantastic, excellent. Thanks so much indeed. Yeah, we're just grabbing it for a quick clip, yeah.
Thanks for
Really nice to see you. Sherry, hello. Sorry, I know you went off the BBC.
Sure, you just called me over.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. We're just here, calling you back. Yeah, of course. Double check.
If they're free-ish now, would you be willing to do it now? Oh shit, sorry. I'm going to have to get live.
We'll get her next then. They want me to go and file that as well, that's what I mean. Both rulings have come out at exactly the same time. Just a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest. Do you have it? Go and speak to a couple of pages with Christian Concern. The other rules at the end of life. I need to speak to her. If I speak to her now and tell you you're coming over, you can record a couple of interviews. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
a statement out there. So, yeah. So it's a bit of a headache.
Trans rights are human rights. So now, even if you kill every last one of us, and no one will be born tomorrow.
We're going to read their statement out. Are you, so if you want to come here.
iPhone's not great. We have a better phone. We have like a phone that's better quality.
Stick at the sight of me.
Apparently the old woman's adamant that it's on film side as well. It's not. Do you want to just come a bit closer, Miss Jerry?
Yeah, I'll line you up. Do you want just a bit right, just so we have the full on the back? Slide over. And so if you're talking to Barry.
Okay, right.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good. Yeah. You okay to go?
Yep, good to go.
So, Miss Jerry, thanks very much for speaking to me. I wonder if I could get your initial reaction to the ruling this morning.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted that this ruling has clarified the law in the way that women's activists and lesbian rights activists like myself wanted. I think it was really important that the law be clarified because for a long time organisations in the public and private sector have been acting as though we had self-identification of sex in the United Kingdom, and now we know that's not the case. And we also know that it's not the case that a man becomes a woman simply by having a piece of paper that says so. And that's really important for women's single-sex spaces and for the rights of lesbians to freedom of association. So that's why the organisation of which I'm a trustee, the LGB Alliance, that's why we intervened in the case to put forward arguments about the rights of lesbians. And we're absolutely delighted that those arguments are central to the court's judgment.
I spoke to LGB Alliance's CEO, Kate Barker, a short time ago. She said that the ruling provided a lot of clarity and would set a clear precedent going forwards. Do you echo those sentiments?
Absolutely, and now it's over to the politicians to make sure that the law is obeyed. So I'm calling on my former colleague John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland, and on the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to respect this judgment and to do what they say that they do. They both say they believe in women's rights and they believe in women's rights to single-sex spaces. If they mean that, then they need to make sure that public policy changes to respect the fact that woman means biological woman and lesbian means woman who is sexually attracted to another woman. Men are not included within those categories.
Is this something that you think you'll continue to raise in Holyrood and in Parliament?
Well, I'm not in Parliament any longer. I lost my seat in the general election. I'm back practising at the bar, but I'm very active in the women's rights movement. As I said, I'm a trustee of the LGB Alliance, and I have a strong voice in the public forum in Scotland, and I've been fighting this fight for a long time. It's cost me dear. I was vilified by Nicola Sturgeon and other people in my political party. At times my life has been in danger, and I've been threatened with sexual violence simply for speaking up for the rights of women and lesbians. But now the Supreme Court has done that. Politicians need to apologise for what's gone before and apply the law of the land. We don't have a hierarchy of rights in this country. We have equal rights. The court has emphasised that trans people are fully protected against harassment and discrimination under the Equality Act. This case wasn't about rolling back trans rights, it was about protecting the rights of women and protecting the rights of lesbians. And now it's over to the politicians to respect the judgment of this court and to change their tune on this issue.
It's called on the Prime Minister and indeed Mr Swinney to uphold this judgment.
Yeah.
How does that work in real terms, in everyday practice?
Well, what it works in everyday practice, we have all sorts of bodies in Scotland. The Scottish Government has policies which contravene the law and which define women by way of self-ID or by way of gender recognition certificate within their own civil service. The Scottish Health Service allows male people to get unchanged in women's changing rooms. That will need to change. Policies in schools will need to change. There'll have to be a sea change across the public sector to recognise that the law has been clarified, and it is the job of those who are elected to positions of political leadership to lead that change. The time for equivocation is over. You know, the Scottish Government in the past have been extremely disingenuous about this issue. When they wanted to introduce self-ID, they told us that having a gender recognition certificate was just an administrative piece of paper. In this case, in the Supreme Court, they argued that a gender recognition certificate, a man who has one, is a woman for all purposes. So they completely contradicted themselves. But they don't need to be doing that any longer because the Supreme Court has clarified the law. So I'm calling on John Swinney to make a statement that his government will respect the law, and Keir Starmer to do the same, and to make sure that guidance is issued across the public sector that respects women's rights to single-sex spaces and also respects lesbians' rights to freedom of association. Another thing, rape crisis in Scotland. Many branches, not all, of rape crisis have been operating their services on the basis that anyone who says they're a woman is a woman. That is now not in any way, shape or form the law of the land, and they shouldn't be getting public money until their policies respect the law. So the Scottish Government needs to look at that very carefully as well. I'm a long-term supporter of Rape Crisis, but Rape Crisis is a charity set up by women for women, and it needs to go back to operating according to feminist principles and not pandering to the feelings of men.
I mean, for you personally, how has the ruling been for you as someone who's campaigned for this situation?
I feel hugely vindicated, and I'm really proud for my sisters in For Women Scotland and Lesbian LGB Alliance that we've been vindicated. You know, I'm a long-term feminist. I'm a lesbian who came out in the 80s and campaigned against Section 28. I've had to put up with my own party leader, Nicola Sturgeon, calling me a bigot and a transphobe for sticking up for the rights of women and lesbians. I think she owes all of us, not just me, more importantly the women of Scotland, an apology, and I'd like to see her on camera acknowledging this judgment and admitting that she got it wrong.
Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, thanks.
Hello, Joanna.
Hi.
May we have a quick
Sure, of course.
Congratulations. Wow. Thanks, Nick. Oh, I said she was still in. People just said names. Kept on coming over and saying